Kenny here with Gardening Simplified, and today what I want to do is simplify the process of setting up a drip system. If you have a larger area, you can do it with smaller area too, but this is really designed good for a larger area. It'll work in a small one too. So, but what I wanted to explain is different types, because okay, what I have here, this is a 700 series. This is 5/8, the stuff I use, and it's 700 series. It's a plastic tubing, and it uses an emitter. Now the drip emitter on here is they come in different volumes. I use a 1 gallon an hour drip emitter, so for every hour I leave it on, I get a gallon. Now, what we're going to be using here, and this is drip tape. Now, drip tape has the emitters built inside. Let's see if I can't get a good view on one of these. But if you see right there, this is the drip emitter. Now, this particular one is set for about a half a gallon an hour. And in this tape, they're set for every 8 inches. Now, some of the crops that I'll plant here in this bed behind me, I won't be planting that close. But it's not going to make that much difference as far as I'm going to space and skip every other one, and that'll put me about where I want to be. And then on some of it, what I'll do is I'll plant a little bit off from each one. That'll get water close enough that it'll still supply the plant with plenty of water. But this is pretty simple stuff. What you have, let me switch this around. Okay, maybe I can see where I'm showing it properly. Okay, when you use drip tape, and you can use it too with the 700. Now, I don't usually, but because I have clean enough water. But when you use drip tape, you want to get you a filter for it. And the way this filter works here is it has a set size as far as particle that it'll filter out, and you can get whatever size you want there. This just goes on. Periodically, you'll take this loose, you'll run a little water through it to wash out anything that's in there that might be clogging it. But you put this in a line so that it doesn't clog up your jet. And the smaller amount of water that you put out, you'll want a finer filter, because with some of these, and I have some others that put out about a 1/4 gallon an hour, it's a smaller hole and you don't want a particle to clog it up. Also, on this drip tape, it's pretty straightforward. Now, you have a choice. You can take and you can use a valve, and you just, what you'll do is you make the hole and you'll put this valve right in here. That way you can control each one separately. Just turn it off, and if you want to water part of your line or whatever, because what I'll do is one main line. Well, some crops might not need as much water, and especially at certain times. Say if you set this up for onions and it's a season where you want your onions to finish off, so you'll cut back your water, you can shut this off, but you can still water other things on the system. Now, this drip tape is rated, and you order it that way. Now, this is 15 mil, so it's thicker, but it actually tells you how many gallons. This is 0.55 gallons at 15 pounds. And so what I have is a regulator, so I step this pressure down, and it'll also tell you what your maximum length is that you can run this, without having a line loss. So you need to take those things into consideration. Now, that's a pretty long line for a lot of these. It's maybe 400 feet. None of my lines will be that long, but you need to take that in consideration when you're doing it. Now, also, you have, this is pretty straightforward. When you end the end of it, all you have to do is fold this over, and you have this nice little piece that fits on it, and this ends your roll. So if you ever want to extend this further, you could just pull this off. You could get a coupling. You could add this on to another length and extend it. So it's not like if you cut this down and then you decide you want it to be longer, that there'd be a problem. It is a little warm out here today. Okay, and we'll do a little more here. Now on some of yours, you might not want a valve, so you can get a starter, and it's just like a valve. You slide your piece on there, you twist this, it holds it into place. You make your hole, and you just plug this into your main line, and you're ready to go. And if you have lines, like a lot of times I reuse lines, they have goof plugs. And what these are plugs that are set up to where you can just stick them in an old hole. And, if you have to move it because you move your rolls or something like that. I've used some of these lines for fruit trees when they were younger and stuff. So some of them have drip emitters where I don't want them, and all I've got to do is poke these goof plugs in there, and that'll take care of it. And if you're going to join a line, you have a union here, which you would just put your, like I say, if you want to extend one, make it longer or something. Maybe you're going to add a roll or something. You just couple the two together and extend it however long you want. And it's fairly straightforward that way. Now, for me, there's a lot of advantages to using this 700 series. And I'll put links to both of these because I try to find things at a price that is really cheap for good quality. And I've got a supplier for each of these that I've found is they get it to you quickly. They're really professional about the way they do business, and their price is great. And now this here, I think it's probably 4 or 5 years. It could extend longer. This line here, now I've used this same line for probably 12 to 15 years already, and it's still in great shape. This really lasts. It's just not as simplified a lot of times because with the drip emitters built into it, and you have crops that are set at a certain place. Like today, I'm going to be planting some sunburst patty pan squash, some corn that I'm going to really put in tight in the market bed and see how it does. And then I'm going to put some dragon tongue beans, and if I have a little extra space in this row, I'm going to go ahead and put some curry squash on the end. And I'm in my beans and my squash and my corn, except for the sunburst. This crop is mainly for seeds for next year, and then part of the corn we will be drying and making into cornmeal. But anyway, this is the basic parts, and once I get this started out, I'll give you a little bit of idea of how it is whenever it's installed. This kind connector here, like I say, these are easy to put on. It's just a matter, and you can take them off the same way. It's just a matter of you slide your hose on there, slide it on good, give a twist here till it stops, and then it's there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect this to the 700 series tubing, and I use the same tool. It's kind of wore out, but I use the same tool I use for my drip emitters. It works fine. This is a little larger, but it works just great. And all we're going to do, we're going to use this tool where we want this at, and it's going to cut a small hole, and then we just push this into that hole, and that's all it is to it. Now the 700 series, you can use different types of connectors. You can use these barbed in connectors. I use them occasionally, but most of them are just press fit. You just take and let's find one here and open it up. These are the little drip emitters. Let me open that up. The little emitters, and they just have a little barb the same way right here. This end sticks in there. This little head here, you can kind of twist it to clean it sometimes if they get debris or something. The connectors they use, now this is a T-in line, but it's just a pressure fit. You just trim your hose to the length, and then you just push it in there, and it seals off. Now I've found that I can reuse those. It's not a problem. It takes a little work to get the old one out, but a lot of times if I change up the system, I'll just reuse the fittings. But like I say, I'll post a link in there. But what I'm going to do now with this drip line, and I've got 4 different types of plants I'm planting, so I'll do it in different ways. Now I've had this on for just a little bit and then turn it off so I can connect these other lines. But what happens is it makes wet spots where the emitters are, and that's where I'll plant my seeds. Now I'll be planting beans too, and this is 8-inch spacing. What I'll do is I'll plant it 2 inches off each side of the drip nozzle, and then that'll give me a 4-inch spacing on my beans, and they'll get plenty of water that way. I hope this video is helpful. Gives you a little ideas, as far as different way of watering your plants. For sure it keeps you from having to overhead water, which is a major problem, a lot of times with light and different things like that on certain plants. But it's not limited to just like field gardening or something like this. I mean, you could use it in planter beds. You can use it with container plants. The companies, I believe, the company that sells the 700 series stuff, I think they have small tubing and different types of even little sprinkler sprayers and stuff that you could use in your container system. So don't think you're limited to just that it's going to be like a field crop type setup. If you think this video is helpful to someone else, please share it. If you liked it, like it. And if you're not subscribed, well, subscribe and hit the bell so you'll see my next videos when they come out. Happy gardening.